Today, we have a wonderful guest, Lloyed Lobo, co-founder and president of Boast.ai. Lloyd, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to getting to know you and understanding what you are doing and, brainstorming with our audience on what you're doing.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. I've been a longstanding fan of your show and excited to be on finally.
Where are you from?
I am a combination of things. I grew up in Kuwait. My parents are from India, and you know, from a place called Mangalore
Okay, very good.
in India, where there were like I guess remnants of the Portuguese flying in from Goa or kind
Yes,
of thing.
I
So
spent a
I have a
wonderful
very
vacation with my parents in Goa just before the pandemic. It was really nice.
Definitely, yeah. So yeah, so I think my family was from there. My mom grew up in Mumbai, my dad grew up in Bangalore. But I was born in Kuwait and then moved to Canada, did engineering there, and I was a refugee of the Gulf War in the 90s. We then a
Mm,
few years after moved to Canada, and then after engineering in 2006, moved to the United States.
okay. And what part of the U.S. are you working out of right now?
I'm in the Bay Area. I'm in
Oh,
Castro
great.
Valley.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wonderful. All
Are
right.
you in the Bay
So
Area as well?
I'm in Menlo Park, yeah, right off Sandal Road.
Nice.
I've been in the Bay Area for a long time. So let's talk about Boast.ai. What is the genesis and what kind of background brings you to Boast.ai?
Yeah, definitely. So Boast AI is a fintech platform that helps companies identify, claim, and finance R&D tax credits and government incentives. Globally, hundreds of billions of dollars are given in government incentives to fund innovation, but the application process is cumbersome, it's manual, it's prone to frustrating audits, and it takes a long time to get the money. And what we do is we integrate with the company's technical systems and financial systems to pull that data in real time through the year to then identify what they qualify for, how much they get back, and then finance it. So they're getting more money faster for less time and risk. It's a different type of non-dilutive capital, effectively.
Mm, interesting. So um, let me try to respin what you said, and you tell me if I understood this right. And audience, you're also welcome to, this is complex, right? What we're talking about is quite complex. So there are tax credits that governments and various agencies provide, and they're very difficult to apply for, and they're long, time consuming, and you have to wait for it and so forth. What you're saying is you look at the company's financials and other heuristics to figure out what the company would qualify for, and then submit that application based on your evaluation of what they would qualify for, and then finance it, and then you get the credit back to pay back that credit. Is that a good summary of what you said?
That's a fantastic summary, right? Like I was saying, it's a cumbersome process, meaning if you work with your accounting firms, you're always looking back and trying to figure out what work qualifies. And then in between there, once you file the application, you may get audited from the government. And that whole process, it takes like 16 plus months to get the money because you have to spend a year's worth of R&D or product development expenses to then file it with your taxes and then get the money. And we're saying, hey, use Boast, integrate your technical and financial systems. We'll analyze what you performed in R&D. We'll figure out what the cost is and how it qualifies for these incentives, and we'll give you the money now, and then we'll take the fee or the money on the back end when the government pays you. Kind of.
And so I understand the financial signals. Like I imagine you integrate with the accounting system like a QuickBooks or whatever, and pull the financials from there. When you talk about R&D assessment, what are we talking about? What can you assess?
Definitely project management systems in the tech sense, like software companies, we're looking at their Jira and GitHub, right? So one of the things is people don't time track. And one of the most important things to figure out how much to claim, you need to figure out who spent what time on these projects. But in the product development space, everyone is agile. They're not time tracking. So we integrate with their Jira, their GitHub to see who's spending how much time on projects. And we have automations where algorithms that figure out time tracking on an individual basis, on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. So then what we do is we look at the projects they're working on, we figure out who spent how much time on it, then we map it to payroll. Like we have integrations with companies like Gusto and ADP. Then we map it to QuickBooks to look at like, what other expenses they spend money on. It could be local contractors, it could be hosting costs, and then we automate the application process and everything downstream. So effectively,
Interesting.
we're
Okay.
collecting R&D tax credit is a beachhead for us, because my co-founder used to run this at KPMG. He was a manager in the R&D tax credit team, and he said it's a very manual, broken process. It's like at the end of the year, we would go to companies and say, give us your shoebox, but that shoebox is just not your receipts. It's everything you did in R&D. And it's very hard for engineering managers and CTOs to remember the work they did in product development that meets this criteria. And then these big four accounting firms would leverage the R&D tax practice, right, to then do digital transformation consulting for these clients. And so our beachhead is, hey, we're automating these R&D tax credits, but now we're sitting on valuable data. What else can we unlock for them? Can we unlock different types of financing? Can we unlock opportunities for digital transformation, meaning like who you should hire, what projects are generating more ROI? Those kinds of things, right? Help you innovate faster. And those are some of the upsell products we will have in the next couple of years.
Talk to me a little bit about what can be had as R&D tax credit from a,
Yep.
Our world is relatively small companies that are, building products basically. So what can you get as tax credit?
Definitely. So it depends on where the bulk of this audience is. But if you're in the US, then let's assume you're a startup that has less than 5 years of revenue. You can get about 10% of your product development spend as a cashback. So that means, let's say you're spending $1 million in R&D, you can get $100,000 in R&D credits that offsets your payroll taxes, and you get $100,000 back from the government. That's a very simple way to put it. Every state also has a program. So this was the federal I talked about. Every state also has a program. But the thing is, most states are not refundable. Now, let's assume you're a startup in Canada. The Canadian government gives you 64% of your R&D spend as a cashback. And in fact, we eat our own dog food. Although I'm based in the Bay Area, we have about 70 people in Canada. The Canadian government is very lucrative in terms of the R&D incentive. So you get 64% of your R&D spend if you're a Canadian corporation as a cashback. And that is huge because look at it. If you're spending $1 million in R&D in the US, you're getting 100,000. In Canada, you're getting 640,000 cash back. And think about it, right? Most companies are not even 5-10% net profit. Most startups are zero. So 100,000 really, if you had to put 100,000 in your bottom line or 600,000 on your bottom line, you're going to spend all kinds of money to do that. So it's been very, very lucrative. And then globally, if you look at it, UK, Australia, France, New Zealand, Ireland, all the R&D tax credits are north of 30%. So in a sense, the US has the worst R&D tax credit program, but something is better than nothing. It's still 10%.
All right. So let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. Where did you start and how did this come together? It sounds like you started with some domain knowledge, obviously. This is esoteric stuff. So there is esoteric domain knowledge in your company. How did you get started?
Definitely. So my co-founder and we studied engineering together. We were partners in every project. We've known each other since we were like 19. And after engineering, he got into Johnson & Johnson's engineering leadership program, built software there. Then he did a startup. That startup failed. And after the failure of that startup, he felt he needed to study accounting principles. So he went and studied accounting, went back to school, studied accounting. And his unique combination of accounting and engineering took him into the tax credit world because it's not an accounting problem, it's an engineering problem. The Big Four was like, oh, you have this unique combination of engineering and accounting. you can help our customers maximize these government incentives for innovation and R&D. After engineering, I pretty much only worked at startups. I worked at 2 venture-backed startups in product and growth, and they weren't successes, although acquisitions. Then I did a couple other companies. I did Automatically, which was an AI for customer service built on top of Zendesk. That failed. Then I did an AI for sales. It was called Speakeasy, and it was incubated by Bessemer Ventures. That failed. And then Alex and I got together, and he's like, man, there's this big problem here, and you can sort of use that as a beachhead to build a big company. And that problem is that there's hundreds of billions in government incentives for innovation, but it's a manual, cumbersome process, and we can automate it. But once you automate it, you get access to all this data. And I was coming from that sort of AI realm. And so I'm like, yeah, the data is gold here, because no company stitches technical data with financial data and banking data. And if we're able to successfully stitch them together, R&D incentives is the first thing. You eventually then will start unlocking more and more value, and you become the system of record for R&D. And so that was the mission. And we've been, we incorporated the Delaware C in 2017. Alex, prior to that, my co-founder, had a consulting firm. So after KPMG, he was doing R&D tax credit consulting. I was a partner in there while I was doing other projects. So we had like this sort of, when you talk about market validation, I often tell other founders is like, do something really manually before you start building software. The best way is to just deliver the service manually and see if customers are happy. Like, to mimic, so the big 4 is coming at the end of the year. Well, if you had to automate it, but do it Wizard of Oz yourself manually, what would you do? So we had a number of customers. So it was very easy when we incorporated Boast.ai to then move them to the software. So that was how we validated it. We knew we had happy customers on the manual.
And what about getting your first product out? Were you bootstrapping to get to the first product with your consulting service?
We bootstrapped to about almost 10 million ARR. And we just raised a round of funding around Thanksgiving last year. So let's talk through the early part of this. So you bootstrapped, you had validation because of your consulting work, and how much of that consulting client pool became customers of the product? What's really funny is I have this thesis from failed companies, from failing Automatically and Speakeasy. Customers want an outcome. They don't want software. And I genuinely believe that. They're buying software for outcomes. They don't want fancy dashboards and whatnot. So when we had these customers that we were doing manual work for, we just rolled them all over to software. They just get the outcome. They're giving us their data. Like, effectively what's happening is they're giving us their data. We're giving them a check from the government. Right? And so it beautifully rolled in. We continue to build more automation. And the other key learning there is you can't build an AI company on day one, right? Like, the first thing is you need to get really good at data collection. You need to collect lots and lots of data. Then you need to automate the workflow.
That was my next question. How did you get the data to train your model?
Yeah, so the first step is, the first thing of every AI is like, you need to collect the data. And you need to get the data really well. And sometimes, not sometimes, in a lot of times, in most cases, that data collection may also need to be manual. You need to have humans in the loop to keep interjecting, to keep correcting and course correcting. Then, you get into workflow automation. So you're automating the collection of that data, still informed by humans. And then you get to a point where you have sufficient data where now machine learning starts to kick in. Like, I'll give you an example from Automatically, which was we did all our customer development. It was AI for customer service, automating customer responses. And this was 2013, 14, when the term chatbot didn't exist. And we did all our customer development with large enterprises, and everyone said, yeah, you know what, if we had a magic wand, we would just want something to respond to our customers automatically, because our customer support team is not proactive, they're inundated. And we're like, call the company Automatically. But when we tried to integrate with Oracle and Salesforce, they said you got to go through like a 1-year security review. So we panicked. We ran to Zendesk. Zendesk was all open. So we built the app on their Zendesk marketplace. And actually, we were the first chatbot that Zendesk had. It was on the right sidebar called automatically. And when a question would come in, we'd automatically populate the answer. So when we launched on Zendesk, we had thousands of people signing up. And then I started getting messages, make this thing stop. So I said, what happened here? And I was noticing that the chatbot was responding with gibberish. So we then made it editor approved. It would pre-populate the answer. And still then they were like, the feedback was, you know what, I still have to edit a lot. And the key learning there was Zendesk had a lot of SMB customers and they didn't have historical data sets. So we couldn't, accurately do like natural language generation or like the AI models weren't working as well that we were seeing on, like, say, running a Turing test on JetBlue on Twitter, right? Because they have so much historical data, so you can be 80, 90% accurate. And so, we shuttered that. And if I knew then what I know today, I would have realized the same thing. Customers want an outcome. I would have gone to all those customers and said, you know what are your most common questions, and done like an if else lookup table. And
A
that
lot easier, actually. You don't need to do AI for that. You just do a rule-based engine and it works.
exactly. And what that is what the basics of AI is, right? It's a rules-based engine. But what ended up happening was, I think the other learning from automatically was, when you're a small startup, do things that don't scale. It's better to please 10 people than to please 10,000 people. But we had so many people sign up that I'm like, we can't even, like, how do I go to all these people and now do the rules? It was just a mess. And so Boast was done very, very meticulously. Like, it's like, okay, do the work manually, figure out all the manual touch points. Then, okay, now how do you get the data? Then rules engine, and now AI sort of thing. So that enabled us to bootstrap very significantly. The other thing also is, when you're a bootstrap company, you don't think of technology. You think in terms of, how do I keep my lights on?
Exactly.
Meaning how do I keep the customer? You have to keep the customer by any means possible. When you're in an
Yeah.
accelerator or venture backed, especially when you raise money early on, your mindset always is like, goes towards experimentation. Oh, how do I build this? How do I build this technology? Like, it doesn't have to be that way. I think early on you got to do things that don't scale. And so then we raised
So
this.
let me probe one thing here, Lloyd, on both. Did you first, when you were doing this manual customer servicing, was it more a rule-based engine than a pure AI?
So first it was like fully manual. The rules-based engine was like literally, what do you call it? The Wizard of Oz MVP, like as Steve Blank calls it, right? Like, it looks like sort of technology, but on the back end, humans are doing it. Then it translated into, there's two elements, right? You're collecting data, and then you need to process that data, and then you generate the outcome. So then we started doing this data collection online where people can upload everything or integrations. Then there was the processing, because now you pull this data, you need to normalize it. And the thing is, data that's coming from payroll or bookkeeping is already pretty much, they're ones and zeros. But data coming from your Jira and
It's
GitHub, they're
clean
not.
data. It's not unstructured data. It's not dirty data. It's very clean data.
Exactly, but Jira, GitHub data is unstructured data. Now, trying to figure out what
Yeah.
projects qualify and who spent how much time on it, it's the hardest part, making sense of unstructured data. And that project is still sort of ongoing for us to make it better and better. And then
You haven't fully figured that.
yeah, and then the third piece is, now how do you look at these data points and automatically write reports for the government, right? Because now that is like writing, it's like natural language generation, and then you go into the realm of like GPT-3, GPT-4. So a lot of experimentation.
But your bootstrapping phase was manually delivering how much tax credit would this company qualify for, and the application to the government. That's what your deliverable was, right?
Exactly. But to the client, what the deliverable was, I got a check from the government and I did not get a government audit.
Interesting. And but you have explained in the beginning that your business model is that you're financing that tax credit. But so the business model was different in the beginning?
The business model, we have two business models. One, I mean, in both business models, it's more or less the same. We take a percentage of the tax credit the company gets after they get it. The financing just helps us bring forward the credit. So what happened was in December or in November, we closed our Series A. We did a 23 million USD Series A. And then in February or March, we did a 100 million warehouse credit facility to lend against those tax credits, because what was happening was entrepreneurs sit on these tax credits for a year and then file it and then get it. And so the financing is a new thing, basically. We weren't financing
Right. So,
until
so,
then.
so initially you were just providing the service of figuring out how much tax credits people would get and the application generation for that tax credit. And what was the business model? People were paying you a percentage of the tax credit
They would
that
get
they
back.
would,
Exactly.
that would get
Exactly.
back.
And now
And they were paying that upfront or after they got the tax
after
credit?
they got the money, after the check was in their bank, they would pay us. And that was a great model, right?
That's a very
Because
long cycle though, right? Governments take a long time to process these, no?
that was a very long cycle and a very stressful cycle, because we felt that if we wanted to compete with the big four, because predominantly this is handled by big four, right? Like if I look at it, what Avalara did for sales tax, or what Vanta
Yep.
or Tugboat Logic is doing for SOC 2, we're doing for
Avery.
R&D. Yeah, we're doing for R&D tax credits, because the big four predominantly does R&D tax credits, and they charge you by
Right.
the hour and whatnot. So we wanted to break that mold. I call that in a way value-based pricing, right? Where they get value, then they pay us. It was a very long cycle. It was so stressful, you won't believe, because we're getting paid after the fact. But now we're at a point where like there's so many customers, they're always in the hopper, staggering year ends across US and Canada. So although the cash cycle is long, we're very cash rich as a function of that.
So, but how did you manage the early phase where you had to stay afloat to get paid?
Loans, houses on on bank loans, and credit cards, and very lean team of few people, self-funding it
How
between
many
my.
were you?
When we started, it was just me and my co-founder, and then there were a whole bunch more people. Um, so it was hard making payroll, and a lot of credit to my co-founder, because he funded it out of his personal cash flow to to make payroll many times. We also actually got loans where I still remember my house and Alex's house was on the lien for the loan. So
Mm-hmm.
it was very hard times. And I think one of the things for us to personally stay afloat was, our wives have been very supportive. My co-founder, his wife is a GC at a public company. My wife's an ER physician at Stanford. They've been very supportive. So I think one of the key learnings is, if you want to build an entrepreneurial venture and you can't eat, and you want to also bootstrap, then make sure you have a supportive spouse.
Yeah, well, I mean, somebody has to pay the bills in the family. That's one of the things that we talk about all the time. And and what you're pointing to is, bootstrapping with a paycheck, but in this case, bootstrapping with a spouse's paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't use their paycheck to pay employees and business expenses, but they supported the lifestyle at home, right? The car
Yeah, right,
payments, the house
exactly.
payments.
Somebody has to pay the bills for the family, and it's all very well to say that you have to jump in with both feet and commit fully and all of that, but how do you keep your life afloat?
Exactly, and that was the whole thing. We had been a part of venture-backed failure, so we really pushed to bootstrap. And I often say, if you build a company, a product or service that people want and want to pay for, um, money will follow. And so, a big part of our growth strategy has been community-led growth. Um, we sell to founders, CEOs of technology companies. And so when we started the company as failed founders, we started doing these things called pizza nights. And every time, and it would not be on R&D credits. It would be on some topic, because the CEO of a tech company needs more than just R&D credits. They need fundraising, they need angel money, they need hiring, scaling, all of this. So we do these pizza nights, and those pizza nights sort of kept growing. More and more people started coming, and it evolved into a big community. Today we have about 115,000 subscribers. We never called that community the Boast community. We called it Traction. And today we do 2 webinars a week. We do monthly dinners in different cities. We do conferences, pop-up events. And every major tech CEO, from Twilio to Sridhar at Zoho, have come to our events and spoken. We donate the money from it, but that community-led growth flywheel has been a big part of our revenue growth. We've doubled pretty much every year. Right? And
so
this
how
year also,
long did you have to operate in this very lean mode, depending on your wives and so forth, and really struggling to meet payroll before the money started to flow into the company?
I think till about 2018, 19, 2018, 19, it was tough. Then we could start taking money was flowing in a way where it wasn't the biggest concern. We raised the money, the 23 million Series A in November. When we raised the money, we had 30 people.
November 2020.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah. So when we raised the money, we had 30 people. Now we're over 100 people. Our CTO joined us from Avalara. We have a CMO who's come from 4 acquisitions, 1 IPO. We have a very active board member who just sold her company for $1 billion, and previously she was the SVP at Intuit. And we brought in a really solid team. And so now it's a different story. The business is cash rich.
And you were at 10 million ARR? Not ARR. The ARR is not your business model, right?
The way we look at it as ARR, because for every year a company does R&D, they pay us. So it's recurring revenue, because although we take a percentage, it's very consistent with how much R&D they do. So that's how we model it out. And yeah, so we were close to that. I think like very close to that, and that's where we took. And so
when you raise money.
Yeah, then we raised money, very close to it. I would say, right? We were on the path. We basically had a solid line of sight to hit 10, and so this year we'll have hopefully grow close to double from that.
So how many customers is 10 million ARR? How many customers is 20 million ARR for you?
Yeah, so we're close to 1,000 customers, and 20 million would be around 2,000 customers, more or less. So like we're like in that range, or depending on where you target, right? We're going more and more up market. We're targeting larger and larger companies where that sort of window starts decreasing a little more. Our team is crushing it in the sense that it's funny, if you looked at our new logo metrics from last couple of years, about 60% was referrals, which is insanity.
Wonderful.
And we had only 4 salespeople. Now we've built an SDR team. We've doubled the sales team, and they're all generating. So now referrals is balanced out with sales development, and then other marketing activities, kind of thing, which is good. You want to see that.
Talk about the fintech business. After you raised financing last year, it's almost coming up to a year that you have had money in the company, big money in the company. So you have introduced a fintech business. Talk about how that fintech business is evolving, and what does that do to the financials?
Definitely. So from a fintech perspective, the way we look at it is we're sitting on this trove of technical and financial data, particularly financial data, right? We're integrating with the payroll, we're integrating with bookkeeping, we're able to pull banking data. So the fintech aspect of that is there's all these R&D credits and incentives that people sit on, and they sit on it for more than a year. So the fintech aspect of it is, can we lend you the money? Now, to lend them the money, we need to underwrite a few aspects of it. We need to underwrite, does this person qualify for the R&D credit? Because it's not like we lend them the money 16 months ahead or 12 months ahead, and then the government says they don't qualify. So that's aspect 1. 2, is this business even stable, right? Because if you lend them the money and they go out of business, then we're taking a loss. So those are all the things we're figuring out. We've had a number of customers in beta on that product, and we'll launch it in a big way sometime in Q4 or January for the next season. And I see huge potential there, because a lot of banks are now coming to us and saying, you're sitting on this unique data set. Can you then, offer them other types? Like, can you offer them credit card, and can you offer them not only lending against R&D credits, but other things? And we have 2 options here. We can either take the risk, or we can partner with people like a Clearco or a Cap Chase or a Citibank kind of thing. So those are the things we're thinking through is like, how much do we do? Because ultimately, as a founder, you want to minimize your risk, right? And the capital risk is hard. So like we understand the R&D
Capital risk
space.
is very hard, very hard. So
And
now, what does that do to the business model? You were taking a percentage of the tax credit and you were getting paid when they got paid by the government. Now you're financing it. How does that change the business model?
our goal is to not extend it severely because we were building more and more automations. So our goal is to figure in that financing within sort of our traditional fees. Maybe it may go up a couple points. It improves our net revenue retention significantly because now financing, even if it adds a couple $1,000s to the ACV, then it improves the NRR, right? So if
Sure.
somebody's financing it, then it slightly improves the NRR from like our NRR is 100%, but we have no upsell product. So now like, okay, everyone is taking financing, then it adds a couple points to that NRR, which
Well,
makes
and
it
not
very,
only that, I think this is where you don't need to take the financing risk. This is something you can bring in financing partners who will provide the capital and take the financing risk, and you just act as the facilitator in between, and you take a couple of points for providing that service to the lenders, and you're done.
I'm a big fan of embedded lending. Actually, I angel invest as well. I'm an LP in about 6 funds, and I'm a big a couple of the companies I've invested in are in the embedded lending space. I like this because I feel like there's a thesis by Matt Harris at Bain, and he says the first tech platform was the internet, and then came the cloud, which brought intelligence. Then came mobile, which made connectivity ubiquitous. Now it's value exchange. So embedding payments, embedding lending, embedding insurance, all this is huge. And if you look at it, Shopify's payments revenue is soon going to exceed their subscription revenue. So I'm a huge
That's
fan
right.
of that. If you have a customer base, there's no reason why you can't partner with somebody to offer them lending, like, to service those
Well, and
receivables
all
or
the
payments.
banks have this facility to do lending. What they're
Exactly.
lacking is proprietary data sets against which to evaluate lending, applications and so forth. So if you bring that to the table, you can easily get a few percentage points with taking no risk at all.
Exactly. And that is 100%. So that's where we're thinking is like, hey, do you want it on your balance sheet, which we don't want it because balance sheet companies, the valuations are crap. So like, how do you do these facilities where they're sitting on somebody else's balance sheet? They're taking the end-to-end risk. You're doing the underwriting and you're getting a few points.
Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Well, I love what you're doing, Lloyd, and thank you for reaching out. I enjoyed talking to you. We will keep in touch and follow what you're doing.
Definitely. Thanks so much. And when this is live, we'll also promote it to our community. Thanks for all the great work you're doing, Smarna. And I love your show, and I've watched and read many blog posts. It's very inspiring, and it takes a village, they say, to build a startup. And collectively, you're building a great community, and hopefully, a lot more than 1 million entrepreneurs and successful startups.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.